Apprenticeship Officer at FIT, or Fast Track into Information Technology, and I'll be your host for today's session. So, just a little bit about FIT for those of you who may not know who we are. FIT are the National Coordinator of Tech Apprenticeships in Ireland. We have programs in software development, cybersecurity, computer networking, and we're excited to say that we have a new data analytics program set to launch later this year, subject to QQI validation. We are delighted to be joined today by Joseph Holland. Joseph is the Director of Digital Foundations at Aon and a former FIT learner. Joseph has also just recently become a member of FIT's board. So, Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So, Joe, I suppose before we talk about where you are today in terms of working in Aon, I'd love to hear about if you could take us back to the start of your journey or the start of your career, what led you into technology and how you came across the FIT program initially.
Yeah, so back when I was in, secondary school, I think along with a lot of people, I didn't really know where to kind of go initially. And back then we're in the midst of the Celtic Tiger. I thought, hey, look, I'll take a shot at architecture and I'll go do that. Unfortunately, I didn't get the points for the Leaving Cert and the CAO. So I took a year off and kind of was working and things like that. And during that time, I ended up kind of losing my job. I was unemployed school leaver and I was planning on going back to do the Leaving Cert. And I was in FOSS at that stage. And one of the caseworkers there said, hey, look, there's FIT and they're doing this course. And at the time, there was a pilot course locally and I was, interested in IT. I was always kind of like refurbishing computers and, messing around with things like that. So I was definitely interested. And then I got on the course. I think at that stage it was maybe 4 months long, and we did all of the ECDL and the A plus and Network Plus and all these things. And then after that, I ended up getting an apprenticeship for I think 3 months in KeyPack at that time.
Okay.
And yeah, from there that became a 1 year contract and then full-time employment. And then I moved on from there into version 1. So they're very successful now in Ireland and across the world. And then from there into Aon. So yeah, it's been a long kind of journey there, jumping from one thing to the other. But definitely FIT was that thing at the start that gave me that that kind of foot in the door, with the tech apprenticeship and without the college degree, been able to get in there and prove yourself in a place and people to give you that chance and you to show what you can do was definitely a big thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say there's a lot of people out there that are doing their Leaving Cert at the moment, or they may be in similar situations. Like it's very relatable, and it's a little bit like that sliding doors that you happen to come across the FIT program, and you enjoyed IT, and it opened up a lot of pathways. And I suppose for FIT, like we're the national coordinator of tech apprenticeships since 2018, but we're established since 1999. So we have been providing technology and lots of different technology training programs and apprenticeships schemes since 1999. So it's great to kind of see that. It's great to see more and more people get to where you've got in your career, and that was the starting point. And I suppose, Joseph, as the director of digital foundations at Aon, leading AI platforms and developer experience, as AI becomes more embedded in software development, what skills or ways of working do you think are becoming more essential for developers to have and for technical teams today?
So I think the main thing, like I'd say to lots of people, is getting used to using those tools. Like there are lots of people, I've seen and I've talked to in the past where they're using the tools, but they're kind of only using them here and there and not kind of fully immersing themselves in it. So even I was doing another talk there recently, and some people were kind of, people trying to get into jobs and kind of junior people trying to get in. They were saying, how can we compete with this stuff and this AI stuff? And that same thing I was saying, get in and use these tools. So if you're kind of in a job and in a role, obviously, people have, Claude Code and there's Claude and GitHub and Codex and all these other things. been able to take those tools and figure out how to use them in your actual role is definitely key. So,
Okay.
and then the other thing as well is if you're a person trying to get into a job and trying to get in there, and taking those tools and learning them on some type of personal project. So some people might be interested in music or sport or things like that too. Using those tools to create, a website or some type of app or things like that is a really good way to learn how to do those, even outside of your job, like just, start to finish, how all these things work. And then you can take that knowledge back into your role as well. So definitely, trying to use them as much as possible is kind of core. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So what you're saying is that AI is like a tool. It's like an add-on
Mm.
to what you're doing, but obviously it's an essential add-on. And the main thing really is to keep up skill and to start using the tools more often, familiarize yourself with them, and also have personal projects that are quite fun as well, that you have that interest
Yes,
in, and it keeps you engaged in it rather than feeling like it's a chore as
a
such. It's something
chore.
that's
Exactly.
something that you can really engage in and enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and that's
exactly.
the best way, I suppose, to learn. So, and it's great to see that. It's great to see that, like, that's the kind of the thought pattern is that this is something that assists people, as a tool rather than completely take over what people are doing as such.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's one of the core worries lots of people have at the moment is AI is going to come in and take over and get rid of jobs and get rid of people. I think, my view on it too is that AI augments people and people skills, and we're
Hmm.
always going to need people to make those decisions. And when we look at things as well, like the EU AI Act and things coming in later
Hmm.
this year and next year, there are, we can't, there are key decisions that have to be made that you can't have, AI make. So humans are always going to be there in the loop doing those things. And I think getting used to, the ubiquitous AI tools that are out
Hmm.
there now and using them in your role is definitely key. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah.
And I suppose many organizations are focused on hiring for individuals with those AI
Hmm.
skills.
Hmm.
From your perspective, where do you see companies struggling, and what are they often overlooking when trying to build AI capability at scale?
So I think this is definitely an interesting one, and I think there's kind of multiple layers to this too. So there's a kind of, platform layer, the tools. So there's lots of companies now, selecting different tools. What tools do we use? And I think the problem is, I suppose everyone needs to be fluid in a way, because one tool or one model that's good this month, there's another tool or model that's good next month. So
Mhm.
lots of companies and people I've been speaking to, companies might be actually using two or three different tools. Some teams might have GitHub Copilot, Claude Code,
Mhm.
OpenAI Codex. So I think there's a team that needs to own that and own, procurement of those tools and getting those tools out there, and developer experience and the um, making the use of those tools very very easy is a core thing. So like there's always kind of push from the top down around
Mhm.
utilizing AI tools, but then you also need to come from the bottom up. So kind of
Yeah.
grassroots engagement with the developers, learning what problems that people are having, because the thing is sometimes people will actually hit issues and it will never be surfaced up to other
Yeah.
people, and then you don't know if people are having problems. So getting in there with the developers and getting in there with the kind of the people using this stuff, you can see how they're using it, but then you can influence how they use it. So what are the best practices? And you also need to have kind of opinionated rules and best practices to lead people along the journey. So things like, skills are a big thing at the moment, skills
Mhm.
files with agent use and agent skills. So having, standards around these and showing people how to use them and create them is definitely core. So you need to, as I said, bring people along on that journey from the kind of bottom up, but then you also need to have the kind of the governance and the
Yeah.
selection of the tools and all of this stuff from the top down. So it's kind of both ways can help create that kind of AI capability. And then the other thing is it's not something that happens overnight.
Mhm.
There's this whole AI maturity curve and everything. Like a lot of businesses are still experimenting or starting to implement these things. even very, very large businesses. It's very early days for a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, yeah, and so I suppose normalizing it within the workforce, like you said,
Mhm.
from the bottom up and from the top down, and having that governance and that making sure that it's used appropriately, whilst also ensuring that people are upskilling
Yeah.
within their company. So it is changing, it is evolving. So building that confidence early,
Yes.
and building that confidence to continue with the changes is really important.
Mhm.
And I suppose there's lots of debate right now about whether organizations still need junior or early career roles as AI becomes more capable. From your perspective, why does that matter when building long term capability in an AI driven world?
So I think that the core to this, in my mind, is kind of risk. So when we look out, 5 and 10 years time about the kind of health of an organization, if you aren't hiring in those junior developers and those junior developers aren't learning skills and everything is outsourced to AI, you have a couple of problems. One is your current senior developers, you're going to have that natural attrition. People will
Hmm.
leave the organization, people will retire, and that tacit knowledge and skills that just leaves. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not passed down to anyone else. So if you have AI taking over there and they're, senior developers with AI tools is driving a lot of that stuff, you're leaving your organization open to risk. The other thing you're open to as well is vendor dependency. So
Yeah.
I know I've talked about this in the past too. We're starting to see, Microsoft, Anthropic, and these things, prices are starting to kind of tick
Yes.
up. And at the moment, all of these organizations and these tools, they're in this customer acquisition phase. So
Hmm.
the prices we're seeing now are quite subsidized and they're quite low. They will start to go up, 3, 5, 10x over the next couple of years. And using these tools now may have cost, your
Yeah.
developers $100 a month. What if that's $2,000 a month, in 3 years' time? So you have this vendor dependency. And by using, tech apprenticeships and having junior people come into the organization using these tools, learning, all that tacit knowledge, learning off your
Hmm.
senior developers, you're reducing that risk. So
Yeah.
those people will be your future senior developers. So it's just kind of core to kind of managing that risk and developing people's skills and careers and just, honestly making a better outcome for everyone in the long run.
Yeah, and I suppose from an organizational point of view, that dependency piece, having people coming through, like you said, and having that tacit knowledge is really, really important. Yeah, absolutely. And looking back on what skills or ways of working did you develop during your time on the program? Um, and what proved most valuable as your career progressed, particularly as you moved into more senior and leadership roles?
So I think it's funny. It's been such a long time now. From the tech skills, I suppose, I've always been curious and wanting to learn things, but from the kind of program that we did through fit, it gave me a view on other things I wasn't aware of. So, I wouldn't have thought about, software development or computer networking or anything like
Mhm.
that. And then I ended up kind of going into the infrastructure end of things like servers and computer networks and stuff like that. But that wasn't something I'd actually thought about much. I knew how computers worked and I could build them and stuff, but
Mhm.
they're not really, I suppose, core skills even back then or in this day and age. It's what do enterprises want, and computer networking and all these things
Mhm.
are core. The other thing I think as well, which was interesting at the time, I was only 18 or 19, and I wasn't um the kind of people skills,
Yeah.
learning off these people, learning off there was lots of people reskilling, people coming in the 30s and 40s, and me
Mhm.
as an 18 or 19-year old been around those people and kind of absorbing some of this knowledge was definitely key. And that gave me the confidence then when I went out into the workplace and on the tech apprenticeship to be able to know, hey, look, um, you know, I do know a bit of what I'm on about, and I was able to kind of show myself in there and actually prove my worth. So definitely fit, it's not just the tech skills, but it's also
Yeah.
the soft skills and things like that too that really helped me.
Brilliant. And it's funny when you said a curiosity, because that's what I suppose one of the things with the tech apprenticeships,
Mm,
there are eligibility criteria in
mm,
terms of you have to be over 18 and things like that. But it's really for people that have a curiosity and a passion for technology. And I
mm,
suppose identifying that soft skills that you mentioned there as well, being able to interact with people and communicate and problem solve and, critical thinking and open up
mm,
all of these different kind of things. And a lot of the time, the majority of employers that I would speak to on a daily basis, they're the kinds of things that they look for. They look for someone who's really curious, really passionate about
mm.
technology, but definitely those soft skills or strong skills,
Yeah,
they're really important, and that building of your confidence. So
yeah,
it's great to kind of see that journey.
yeah.
And I suppose for employers who, maybe unsure about hiring a tech apprentice, what would you say to them based on your own experience?
I think it's, I suppose, a really good opportunity as well, because you're hiring in, if you're hiring in someone, an experienced person from another, organization or somewhere else, they come in with their own views and ways of working and all
Hmm.
these things. And it's, that's really good too. But I think with a tech apprentice, someone's coming in kind of like a, a clean slate and a fresh, you're able
Hmm.
to bring them along on kind of your way of working, and
Hmm.
they could, kind of in some ways mold them to the person that, and the worker that is needed in that organization. So it's very, what's the word for it? You're, it's a really good opportunity to kind of get people in there that will be right for your organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
working with the mentors in the organization to then, be a really effective kind of part of the organization. That's what I found in, my experience, and then talking to other people I know have known that have gone through that as well. So it's definitely, and the one thing I did want to say too, it's very low risk. It's,
Yeah.
you're bringing someone in that's going to be part of your organization and learn how you work, and take, as I said earlier, the tacit knowledge, and then, grow within the organization to become a high performer. It's definitely it's a really good opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, and I suppose kind of echoing what you're saying there, what we find is a lot of the tech apprentices tend to be very loyal,
Mm,
because they've grown with the company and
mm,
into, they've grown with their colleagues, they've grown with what they learn
mm.
within their with the company, with the hiring
Yeah.
company that they've been with.
And that's the other thing I just did want to mention about that. When we're on about the knowledge and the loyalty, the apprenticeship front loads the context. So I've known a lot of people on graduate programs too that have come out of 3 or 4 year degrees, and they come into an organization and they don't know, oh, I need to, they go through a run book and it's like SSH into something. And they're like, well, what's that? They don't know. Whereas an apprentice has been working in the organization over the past couple of years and has the knowledge and has those things. So they're much more effective because they're in that working environment, learning those things day to day. Whereas I think conversely, and again, I've done the degree myself, and there's value in
Hmm.
college education too. But I think with the tech stuff, the apprenticeship is really, really good, because those people have those skills and they learn those skills. Whereas coming straight out of college, in some ways they're ahead on theoretical but behind on the actual experience. And I think at the end of the day, my career, I suppose, from my experience, has shown that the experience is key.
Hmm.
In my mind, having the work experience and the knowledge is the thing that will drive you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose
Mm,
with the apprenticeships, they're 2 year apprenticeships where 30% of the
mm,
time they're in education. It's quite intensive,
mm,
30% of the time. And then there's 70% of the time they're with the employer where they get that on the job learning experience that you mentioned there. That really does. I think you end up with a very well rounded individual
mm,
that has those soft skills, that understands the business, and obviously understands then the educational components that they need to have to actually complete the tasks that are ahead of them. So, Joseph, it's been great chatting to you. We're delighted that you're going to be on our board, and it's wonderful to see your story and how you've progressed. And I just want to thank you for joining us today, and to everyone that has been watching today. And just a reminder for any employers who might be interested in hiring a tech apprentice from any of our upcoming programs this year, you can find links to our website, LinkedIn page, or book a call directly in the comments. For anyone watching who might be interested in becoming a tech apprentice, or completing any of our nationwide traineeships or LTI programs, you will also find relevant information in the comments shortly. So keep an eye out also for our next LinkedIn Live, to discover who our next tech apprentice employer will be, joining our next session. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.